Hello and welcome back to my channel. Since I have officially finished my year at Cambridge, I wanted to sit down and talk about my MPhil a bit. I've seen a lot of videos of people talking about their MAs and their undergraduate degrees there and even their PhDs there. But I've seen very few videos regarding the MPhil, so I thought I'd sit down and go through what an MPhil actually is. So before I go into the video of me reviewing my experience at Cambridge, I just wanted to say firstly that, as a disclaimer, that my year at Cambridge wasn't representative of how it usually is for two main reasons. Firstly, the university strikes. I'm sure if you've been to uni, you've encountered this. And secondly, obviously, COVID-19. I will not be talking about COVID-19 in this video, mainly because due to the nature of my degree, so due to the MPhil, I wasn't greatly affected by this. So I will not be talking about that, although I recognize that other master's students have had a vastly different experience and been greatly and severely affected by everything moving online and all the things concerning that. So yeah, I will not be talking about that. So yeah, those things out of the way, I also just wanted to say that if I do have some criticisms regarding the course, that does not mean that I don't recognize that I was very privileged to be able to go there and that I was very lucky to be able to go there. So yes, I just believe that it's very important to talk about things and to recognize what can be improved for future years. And yeah, I just think that a year ago, I wish there had been a video like this where somebody just sat down and explained what an MPhil was, because I was very confused when I applied for it. I wasn't entirely sure what it was and what the different MPhils that there are at Cambridge entailed. So yeah, with that out of the way, this video is going to be divided into 3 sections, basically, if I stick to that. We'll see. But the first one is basically just going to be what is an MPhil, me talking about the specific MPhil I did, all the components of that degree, of that course. And then I will be talking about the miscellaneous bits, so just attending Cambridge in general, so the college, the sense of community within the department, and, you know, finances, and just basically, like I said, miscellaneous things. And then the third section is going to be whether or not I would recommend this course to people and why that may or may not be. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get into this. As you can tell probably already, it's going to be quite a chatty review video. By no means is it going to be a formal video, but I do have a flashcard with some notes, some keywords, so I will not be too greatly derailed by my scattering thoughts. So yeah, let's just get into the video. So what is an MPhil exactly? So strictly speaking, an MPhil, which stands for Master of Philosophy, is a research master's degree, which means that it's more similar to a PhD rather than similar to an undergraduate degree. That's basically the definition. Having said that, there are different types of MPhils, at least at Cambridge, and those are an MPhil by advanced study and an MPhil by thesis. Now, the difference between these two is that while the MPhil by thesis is purely research-based, so very much like a PhD, the MPhil by advanced study is partially taught, as well as being a research degree. Now, I did an MPhil in Theoretical and Applied Linguistics by advanced study. So I did a linguistics master's degree, which was research-based and partially taught. Now, when I talk about an MPhil being partially taught, I mean that, at least at Cambridge, the first 2 terms, so Michaelmas term, so between October and Christmas, and Lent term after Christmas, from Christmas, the New Year, and onto Easter, you are expected to attend seminars and lectures. So the lecture, so in Michaelmas term, so when you first start your degree, you are expected to attend 4 mandatory lectures. And these lectures are, you can choose 4 different ones, and you have to pick one which is going to be related to your thesis topic that you are ultimately going to be writing for your research part of the MPhil degree, if that makes any sense. So you have to pick one that is related to your thesis idea. You have to pick, and then 3 other ones which are new to you, so you can expand your horizons as a linguist, which I think is a good idea. It's always good to encounter new topics. For instance, I did syntax, which was my thesis area. So yeah, I also did computational linguistics, which was completely new to me. And I did phonology, because I've always liked phonology, but I've never been very good at it. And then I also did dialect syntax. Yeah, because I knew for a fact, I knew that I wanted to focus on a specific dialect when I did both my MPhil thesis and my PhD thesis in the future. So I thought that would be a very useful module, and I'd never done anything like it before. So those were my 4 main ones that I picked. There were a large array of different lectures you could pick from. And if you are interested in doing an MPhil, I would very much recommend, before you apply, to go on to whichever department website you are considering applying to and just checking which modules they have listed. Usually it changes. It changed a lot from what I saw to what I actually ended up being able to choose from. It did change, but not to a great degree. So yeah, I would recommend just looking that up and just seeing what might be offered, because obviously Cambridge does not offer a very applied linguistic area. So for instance, they don't offer discourse analysis, conversation analysis. They don't offer forensic linguistics. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But yeah, that was by the by. So those are the 4 courses I had to attend during Miscellaneous term. And then you could also audit 2 other classes. So I decided to audit semantics and child language acquisition. Now these 2 courses, you basically just show up and sleep if you wanted to. It was just an opportunity for you to learn something that wasn't perhaps in your immediate circle of interests, if you will. So that was Miscellaneous term, just strictly speaking, Miscellaneous term. And what I will say about these lectures is that they are undergraduate lectures. So what I was slightly disappointed, because I was expecting them to be a lot harder than they were. But it's always good to be reacquainted with concepts that you already know, but I was hoping for it to be more of a challenge. That's just all I will say about that. Now, going into Lent term, you were not supposed to attend the lectures anymore during Lent term. So that was a strictly 1-term thing with the lectures. And I've been told that was to make sure everybody had the same base understanding of the various disciplines that were taught at Cambridge, just so everybody was on the same level, which I think is a good idea. Now, going into Lent term, this was the term where you had to attend seminars, and these seminars, in contrast to the lectures, were geared towards research and more advanced students, so research master students, so like MPhil students, and also PhD students. And these you had to pick two ones, and one of them had to be closely related to your thesis area. So again, I picked topics in syntax, and then you had to pick another one that wasn't related to your thesis area. And for that I picked historical linguistics, because I knew that for my PhD I wanted to do historical linguistics. So yeah, these were, like I said, not geared towards undergraduate students, so these were quite hard and challenging, and I absolutely loved that. And they were very, as the seminar is, they're very engaging, and they're very interactive, and just a very good place to learn new things. Having said that, one downside to these seminars was that they were very individually structured, depending on who the professor or who the reader that ran those specific seminars were. So for instance, our first one, the one that was supposed to help me with my thesis, focused on one single topic, and that was prodrop. If you've done linguistics, you know what prodrop is. If not, it's a phenomenon that you come across in languages like Spanish, where you drop the subject of a sentence because it can be communicated in other ways, whether that is in discourse or in a grammatically elsewhere in the sentence. So basically, yeah, that was the only topic we covered during Lent term. And because my thesis did not focus on prodrop specifically, and because my thesis focused on Germanic languages where prodrop isn't terribly common, that seminar basically didn't help me at all with my thesis. Having said that, it was an excellent seminar, and the person that taught it is one of the best syntacticians in the world, so I'm not complaining at all. It's just, it didn't help me much. Now, the second one was, like I said, historical linguistics, and that was, again, very individually structured. They were completely different. This one was more, we picked one single book. So in the first, in the first seminar, we would look at a scientific article each week, and we would discuss it, and we would look at pros and cons of what was found, and so that was useful. In the second one, we just looked at a book. It was the Cambridge Handbook of Historical Syntax. I'm not sure that's the title of it. I might be wrong. It's a bit sad that I don't know that. I looked at that book for literally 10 weeks straight. But yeah, and this was structured in a way that we got to practice speaking in front of people, and this will make more sense later on when I talk more about the actual grading system and what was graded and what wasn't. So yeah, each student got to pick a chapter, and that student had to present a presentation, sort of like a conference talk on that chapter. And yeah, it was a good experience. I liked that seminar, and it was, yeah, I think that gave us a lot of good transferable skills that I certainly will bring with me. For my my PhD, my DPhil. So having said that, obviously, like I said earlier, there's a distinction between the by advanced study MPhil and the by thesis MPhil. And the by thesis MPhil did attend these elements of the course, but they didn't have to actively participate in them. And I'll get more into what I mean by that later on. But yeah, apart from these two areas, so apart from these two distinctions, so the seminars and the lectures, there were seminars that were shared by both the by advanced study course and the by thesis course. And these seminars were purely there to help you with your research part of the degree. And these were a research seminar where they taught you referencing conventions, they taught you how to write academic English, they taught you how to go about doing field work, they taught you about ethics and statistics, and they taught you about all the things you might need to know in order to do well in your thesis. And that ran from Michaelmas term all the way to the end of Lent term. So that was a shared module between both the MPhil courses. And the second one was called a general seminar. This was an opportunity for professors to come and talk to the students about their area, and yeah, it was again just a way for us to be more familiar with areas we might not be immediately interested in, which was really good. I like that. These ran on alternative weeks mostly. I mean, Cambridge was a bit unorganized at times, so some weeks we didn't have any of these seminars, but generally we would have one of these each week, and they would all alternate depending on the week. And yeah, that was useful. That was very useful. On top of this, which was a requirement, if you didn't do this next thing I'm going to be talking about, you cannot graduate. So then what I am talking about is something called a Foundations in Applied Statistics. FIAS for short, and this is a statistics course, and it's taught in the maths department by a maths professor. And like I said, you had to attend this course, this module, if you wanted to get a degree from Cambridge, a research degree from Cambridge. Now, when I say this module, it's not like the other modules. This was you could pick between a module that ran for over 2 weeks. So you did a few hours the first week, and then a few hours the next week, or you can do an intensive course in statistics. I did the intensive course, and basically it was just there to teach you more formal statistics. So the intensive course I did was divided into 2 parts. So it ran over just a single day. So it started at 8 a.m, and we would do very theoretical work. We would look at equations, and we would look at the foundations to do good statistical analysis and good statistical research. And yeah, that after lunch, so that was for 4 hours, and then after lunch we would go into a computer lab and we would learn how to program in a program known as Stata, where you can create all the things you would need to create. You can, it calculates things for you, it creates tables, and it creates histograms, and it creates anything you would need to do a neat and nice statistical research part of your thesis. So yes, that was something you had to do that wasn't immediately relevant to linguistics. Having said that, I'm very grateful that we got to do that, since I'm going into my PhD now and I will need that knowledge. So thank you, Cambridge, for forcing us to do that. I would not have done that if I had a choice. So yeah, if you do this in the linguistics department or the MMLL, so the modern languages and the modern and medieval languages and linguistics department, you will most likely be forced to do a statistics course. But don't fret, it's over very quickly. You just have to sit one exam for it, and it's very simple. And yeah, that's just something that you have to do. Now I've actually talked about these lectures and these seminars and these all other bits of the course. I just wanted to say that the second thing that differs the by advanced study course from the by thesis course is that as an advanced study student, I had to submit 10,000 words worth of coursework throughout my degree, throughout my course, as well as a 20,000 word thesis. If you were a by thesis student, you only had to submit a 30,000 word thesis at the end of your 9-month course. Now, each of the lectures I talked about were associated with a specific essay title, and these essay titles, these essays that you were supposed to write for these lectures, were 20,000 words each. No, sorry, that's not true. 2,000 words each. The first essay was due 3 weeks after term started, so sometime early November, and then the two other ones were due in early December. In fact, I remember it very specifically, it was December 5th. Yeah. So yeah, those three were connected to 3 of the lectures, and you had to write an essay for 3 of the lectures you attended. You were also entitled to half an hour supervision for each of these essays, which meant that you had if you put the time and effort in, and if you read and if you tried to prepare for the supervisions, you could do very well, and a lot of people did. So I wouldn't be too scared off by having to do extra coursework, because yeah, Cambridge provides you with a lot of help and a lot of resources in order for you to do a really good job. So yeah. The next piece of coursework I had to submit was a 4,000 word essay, which was supposed to be written over Christmas, and it was due in early January. And this was not a set essay question like the essays questions for the 2K essays that were connected to the lectures in Michaelmas term. This time you had to come up with your own topic, so you had to pick one, and I remember the professors told us that it would be beneficial to pick a topic which is slightly related to your thesis area, so you can do some prep for actually writing your final thesis. So I again wrote mine in syntax, and for this you were entitled to an hour's supervision with a professor of your choice. The only thing I will say about this supervising system at master level is that since we had to contact the professors ourselves and set up these supervisions with them ourselves, if they didn't respond, you didn't get a supervision, which can be slightly concerning and scary. This was the case with some of the syntax people. I'm not going to mention names, but a lot of people had issues getting in contact with staff members, which wasn't very pleasant. That's a big criticism I have, that it was difficult to get a hold of staff members sometimes. Having said that, they said that there had been an issue with the email system, so I'll take their word for it, but it was just like an extra level of stress on top of, trying to write these essays and trying to come up with a good research topic. Now, the next thing you are being graded on, if you are a by advanced studies student, is an oral presentation. And this is connected to the seminars in Lent term. So remember I mentioned the first seminar had to be connected to your thesis topic, and the second one couldn't be connected to your thesis topic. And for the second one, you had to do an oral presentation. So I did an oral presentation on the loss of veto eye movement in the history of Swedish. And that was an oral presentation that was 15 minutes long with a 5-minute Q&A session. So all in all, not terribly long. And yeah, so you were graded on this, and you got graded for the content of your presentation and for the layout of the presentation. Now, it was a bit weird this year since it was done online because of the time when this was due in March. Well, we all know what happened in March. So yeah, it was done online. But it went well. Yeah, there's not more to that. And then, of course, the next element is your thesis, which was due in June. Now, the way these elements were graded came down to a 60-40 ratio. 60% of your final grade is your thesis, and 40% is the combined grade of your coursework. Now, the 2,000 word essays connected to the lectures in Michaelmas term were each worth 5% of your final grade. The 4,000 word essay due over Christmas was worth 15% of your final grade. And then the oral presentation at the end was worth 10% of your final grade. And that averaged out into a grade, and combined with your thesis, that made your final grade. I liked how they did this. I know it can be scary to have the thesis being such a big part of your final grade, but since it's a research master's, I think it's justified, and I think it's good that because you had to pick lectures, for instance, in Michaelmas time that you perhaps weren't very familiar with and therefore did not know much about, it gave you a good opportunity to still do very well, even if you didn't do terribly well in those initial essays. You can still graduate with a good mark, because if you put effort into your thesis, you would perhaps and probably get a good mark for that. So that's how that was graded. And just to contrast this to the by thesis course, 100% of that was just their thesis. That was their final grade. Having said that, obviously, everybody who's done research knows what a viva is. A viva is a opportunity for you to defend your thesis. You will usually meet with experts in your field, and they will ask you questions. At master level, this is usually just to make sure that it is your own work and that you know what you're talking about. And it doesn't usually last for very long. I think it's between an hour and however long it might take. For a PhD thesis, I know it's much longer. It can be up to a day. And while this viva is obligatory to attend for by thesis people and the people doing the by thesis course, it was not obligatory for the by advanced study course. So we could get a grade for the thesis without having to attend a viva, basically. However, they said that about a third of the by advanced study students would end up sitting a viva, but I don't know of anybody who actually had to do that. So I don't know if that was because of COVID and that it just caused problems sorting it out, but yeah. So just know that if you do the by thesis course, you will have to do a viva on top of your thesis, and if you do a by advanced study course, you might have to do a viva on top of all the other coursework in order to be able to get your final grade. Now, the next bit I wanted to talk very briefly about, which might sound weird since it is a research master's degree, is the research part of the degree. Now, so Easter term, so obviously the term after Easter that goes into the summer months basically, is just purely put aside for you to do your research. And I say this as if you haven't started before, but so in Michaelmas term, you have to have picked your area in which you want to do your thesis. In Lent term, you have to pick your thesis title, and then obviously you as you do this, you read and you collect information and you collect data perhaps, and then you start writing it in Easter term. Now, I'm not going to talk much about this because I think doing research is a completely different, like how to do research, how I did my research is a completely different video in and of itself. It's such a subjective experience, and especially this year it was quite weird.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Right. You don't have any lectures or seminars you have to go to, and you don't have those research or general seminars you have to go to either. But you do have to meet with your supervisor regularly, and at this time you would send him or her, whoever your supervisor is, you would send them a chapter of your work. They would give you feedback, and you would rewrite it, and you would rewrite it again, and you would just have a good weekly chat with your supervisor. And that's the only time you would perhaps be in contact with one of the professors. Having said this, I honestly don't know what more to say about the research part without going into a completely different, without, basically I'm not going to talk more about this here. If anyone would be interested, I can make a video more about how I did my research and what I would and wouldn't do differently now that I'm doing my PhD. But yeah, it was a good learning curve. I'm happy I did the MPhil specifically for this part of the degree, because it taught me things about myself I knew, but I sort of pretended not to know about myself. So having sort of talked about the MPhil course itself, I now just want to go on to the miscellaneous bits of studying an MPhil at Cambridge. The first thing I want to talk about is the college experience. So a disclaimer again is that I didn't live in college. I lived in private accommodation in Cambridge, as I do here in Oxford. And therefore I wasn't at college much. For instance, I know obviously all colleges have libraries. I didn't go there to study. I went to my department library or to the university library in Cambridge to study. Having said that, I joined a few societies so my college was Selwyn College, and it's a undergraduate and graduate, it's a mixed college. And I attended a few societies. They had a good array of sports societies, music societies, and the boating society, just a bunch of lovely things you could do. And obviously I went to Selwyn to attend formal hall, and yeah, I have nothing bad to say about the college. I actually think I prefer being a part of a college rather than being a part of a university as a whole, like I was during my undergraduate degree at the University of Westminster. So yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention about the college is the support system that you are presented with. So basically, if you do I can only talk about the MPhil here, but because I did my MPhil, I was in contact with a course director, which was the person in charge of my course, which was the person I could have gone to if I had any issues with the course itself. And then more college specifically, I had a director of studies, which was based at my college, which was supposed to be a professor or reader with experience in my specific area. And that actually, in this case, ended up being my own supervisor because he belonged to the same college as I did. So yes, that was the director of studies. And then you also had your personal tutor, which in my case was the reverend or the priest at Selwyn. And he was the person to go to if you had financial problems, if you had health issues, and they were basically just there to make sure that you could do as well as you possibly could during your degree there. And it was a great comfort to have these people around you. If you ever needed help with anything, they were very quick with finding out what to do or who to talk to about that specific issue. So yes, that was the support system that you are given, apart from obviously your supervisor and the more academic people you might get in contact with. The second thing I wanted to talk about in this miscellaneous part of the video is the sense of community within the linguistics department. I've had various experiences regarding the community at Cambridge, but within the linguistics department, we had a really good community. I managed to make good friends that I still speak to today, and they were good at making reading groups. They were good at having activities for each specific subject each week, so you could attend and you could get to know scholars and your professors, and you could get to know other scholars from other universities which might talk at the university during those times. one of my favorite things about my entire course was actually something called Syntax Lab, where it was each Tuesday for 2 hours, and each week a different syntactician would come and talk about their research, whether that is ongoing research or finalized research. And it was just such a great time, and afterwards everyone would go out and go to the pub, and it was just a great way to be included and to feel a part of the community and to be integrated into the university and into the linguistics department itself. So in terms of community, I think the linguistics department did an excellent job at including students, because doing a research degree can be quite lonely sometimes, and I think it's good that you get dragged out of your room sometimes to attend just fun reading groups and labs and whatever else it might be. So that's another good thing about Cambridge that I absolutely loved, and I hope Oxford has something similar. I'm sure they do. The next thing I wanted to talk about in this miscellaneous bit is something I just thought I should mention, is the finances. Each course is, the course fee itself differs depending on your student status, whether you're a home student or an international student, and depending on the length of your course. But so I'm not gonna go into specifics about that, because I'm sure if you are thinking about applying, you've already looked that up. But there are other fees that you might want to take into consideration. So obviously it's the living fee, and they estimate that to be, so the accommodation fee basically, they estimate that to be between £700 and £1,500 per month, and that is whether or not you live in college or outside of college accommodation. On top of that, there is a college fee, at least at Selwyn, that I had to pay, which was £350. And on top of that, there is the gown that you should pay for. I would actually recommend buying the gown, absolutely. You use it quite a lot. You have to wear it to formal hall, you wear it to matriculation, you wear it if you want to visit other colleges, you just wear it a lot, and it just makes sense to purchase it. Having said that, there are different types of gowns you can buy, different qualities, and they don't have to be terribly expensive if you don't want them to be. So yeah, and there are secondhand gowns you can purchase through the university as well. So the sort of things, good things to keep in mind when you are looking to buy your first, perhaps, gown. Last thing I wanted to talk about regarding the miscellaneous things is the biking. I loved living in Cambridge purely for the reason of it's an excellent bike city. Like, I love biking. I missed biking when I lived in London. I grew up in Sweden, and Swedes bike all the time, and I was stoked to be able to do it again in Cambridge. It's such a small city, so having a bike made things a lot easier. You can get from one point of the city to the other in 10 minutes without any problem. And that is a good thing, because sometimes your lectures and supervisions and things will take place in different parts of Cambridge, in different colleges. So it's useful to have a means of getting about which will get you there really quickly. Having said that, there are buses, and obviously you can drive a car there, but getting around inside the inner city, so for instance getting to King's or getting to Trinity College, can be tricky if you don't have a bike or don't feel like walking walking a lot. Now, the last bit of this video, I didn't want to spend too long on this video, but I just wanted to talk about whether or not I would recommend this course to people. And naturally, I would say yes, I would. I think that doing an MPhil, so a research master's, whether or not it's partially taught or not, gives you an array of transferable skills that you can take with you into your workplace, and especially if you are looking to do a PhD or a DPhil. Having done some research and having done quite a large piece of academic work now by myself, I feel less scared to go into my DPhil program, since I sort of know what it entails, albeit on a smaller scale. So yes, I would 100% recommend it for those reasons. Other reasons why I would recommend it is that, Cambridge, it's a specific atmosphere. It's sort of archaic in the way it's done. It's very traditional, and that's fun. It is fun, and you have beautiful working spaces, you have beautiful libraries, you have access to so much information. The University of Cambridge is one of the 4 deposit libraries in the UK, which is just amazing. You have access to some of the best scholars in the world, and the opportunities that are presented to you at this university are just insane and absolutely wonderful. And yeah, so if you have the means to do it, and if you feel inclined to experience that, I would definitely say do apply. Yeah, do apply. I did not go into the application process. That is a separate video in and of itself, trust me. And I have a lot to say about that. Let's just leave it at that. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to me ramble on about my year at Cambridge. I hope it was useful if you are looking to perhaps apply there, or if you are thinking about applying there. Just sort of what an MPhil is, because I know that it's not perhaps the most common master's degree that you come across. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.